People of the world, we are back. We are live. It's Reap the Harvest with Matty Tack, spitting that jive. And what's your story? That was what Matt wanted to talk about today. Why don't you dive in, brother?
Yeah, no, man. We'll both talk about it. I was just researching, doing a little bit of just mental evaluation this morning too, the topic came up. I listened to a lot of John Gordon, but the topic came up. Kind of, what's your story, right? He was dialoguing with another individual, and they just had really good, some cool things came out of it. But one thing he's like, that was an example or an analogy that was made, more so a metaphor. It was basically like taking our computer, for instance, and we're basically that hard drive, and we constantly bog down, our computer with stuff. And then eventually, which mine has actually today, I'm running out of storage on my computer. It says, you need updates, you need updates, you need updates. And what do we psychologically always do, right? We defer those updates. We're like, no, I don't got time for those updates. No, I don't got time for those updates.
Yep.
Well, the more you do that, right, the slower your computer gets. And over time, it's going to get slower and slower and slower until you make that update and reprogram. And you take the time just to kind of sit back, take your 20, 25 minutes just to sit back and let those updates happen. And then you're like, dang, man, why didn't I do this like 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah.
Because as soon as those updates come through, your computer is just jiving again, right? You're going like crazy. So I thought it was a good metaphor to, like, for life, right? How we dictating our story day after day. That's one thing that's been, important to me, right? Just from a level of entrepreneurism and getting into the game. But I know we talk about all the time, what's your definition of success? And that's ultimately what we're doing towards it. So this is the last Wednesday. We're not going to do any more Wednesdays. We're actually going to be in groups, and it's going to be more like specific coach-based training on Wednesdays. But what is it that we're trying to attain? What is our definition, our level of success? And that's like creating that journey, right? And not allowing those deferred updates to, not take place, and really go through the reprogramming. And what does that look like? My story is going to be a lot different than somebody else's. But ultimately, what does that look like? How do we attain our definition of success? How do we
help others?
Then that's what all this is about, right? It's not about really just purely from the coaching element, because at the end of the day, my dad's been a coach for 30 some odd years, I would say. And then I've just played sports, right? I played sports at a pretty high level. I've played recreational sports. And from a coaching perspective, right, sports did a lot for me. I think most importantly, what sports does is creates a level of discipline. I love sports, but what I found as I got older, that yes, sports was a good foundational piece to create a level of discipline, but now it turns into the mindset. That's where a mindset shift, a day after day, really focusing on that vision you have for yourself, but being extremely present. And so when I was listening to this podcast today, it was not only like these deferred updates. And what are the deferred updates? Like, what are those things? Well, it might be like those deferred updates of like, hey, maybe I need to take my wife out on a date. You know what I mean? I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Eventually, it's going to come to a point where, like, you haven't communicated it enough. She's having an affair. You're having an affair. Your eyes are going in another direction, right? And maybe it's like, hey, I'm not there for my kids, enough. Like, I'm not saying no enough. I know I certainly can do that. I can say no a lot more, and setting those expectations, because sometimes I say no and then don't deliver, and that's even bad too, right? So, like, really just establishing the no up front, like, no, this isn't good timing for me. It's not productive use of my time, and I just gotta say no to it. Or from a business piece, right? Of like, hey, I got to get these things done, but is that going to make me feel validated at the end of the day? And from a business, it just might be like, I don't know, hiring an executive assistant or getting another acquisitions guy or it's just like those things, right? That you deferred on because you took too much workload and it's hindering
Set
another
some time apart for yourself. I think that
Well-
a lot of times when we're pushing and pushing and pushing, and especially with kids, my youngest woke up at like 1:30 in the morning last night for some reason, then woke up again at 5. And it's
Yeah.
just like, somebody, you got to step up and handle it. And then I got up at 5 with her. Then she like fell asleep again by 6:15. So I dropped her in with, mom, who was tired. She got up at 1:30. And then I went out and got my walk in and working out and time for me while everyone else was asleep. And so it's just when schedules are constantly changing, and especially as entrepreneurs, we deal with a lot of people whose schedules are changing all the time, and we have to adapt to that. What time are we setting apart every week for ourselves and for our family? Like at nighttime, at like 7:30 at night or so, I just turn everything off now because I lay down in the bed and we watch turtle movies and stuff and go to bed early because I know I'm gonna have to get up at 5 o'clock anyway.
Yeah.
Even though my alarm is set for that time, the baby wakes up at that time anyway. So you're going to have to get up then anyway. So what time am I setting aside for the kids and for mom and for dinner and all this kind of stuff? That can be a challenge for people because it's hard for us to turn off. It's always on. You're always on upstairs, no matter whether you try to turn it off or not. So how can we kind of take a little bit of a time and focus on what our kids need or what our wife needs or whatever else, because that can lead to some devastating consequences if you're taking that time and using it to drink or smoke it up, or like you said, go hang out with other people when you should be hanging out with your wife or whatever. What's that going to do? Washing away your problems with alcohol or smoking it up. And I say this from experience, by the way, which is why I don't do either of those things anymore. It doesn't change anything. You get zero results from that kind of stuff. The problem never goes away unless you face it and provide solutions and face it head on. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking a beer or two, by the way. You do whatever you want to do. I would say that if you're using that as a tactic to escape from providing a solution in any kind of area in your life, it's going to backfire. And I feel like, we're seeing that more and more and more, especially when people are stuck at home with the corona care and coronavirus. Alcohol sales are through the roof. So, I mean, the data is there to back this up. And so, that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the group. And we want to provide that support. I've been sober for almost 700 days. I believe today is day 650. So, if you're one of those people that, uses weed or alcohol or something like that to try and escape the problems of life, and you feel like nobody understands and there's anxiety involved with that, and your wife doesn't understand and your kids don't get it. Well, guess what? I totally understand. Because, and that's okay. There's nothing abnormal about that. It's just you got to have some people around you that are going to help you hold yourself accountable, that are going through the same thing as you. That could be one area. Another area could be real estate. You need to get into a real estate network that's going to provide you, a different result in your story. What is your story is great right now. You can change the future results of your story at any time by making a decision to level up in these areas. So, I think some of that stuff people don't want to talk about. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. Tell me about it. I can tell you all kinds of stories about why I don't do those things anymore. I personally, it's not good for me. I'm just as messed up normally as I am with anything else. I don't need help being messed up. Ask Matt. I don't need any help being a wacko. I can do that on my own. So trust me, we want you to feel at home. We want you to feel understood. If you're in the real estate department, you're looking to partner with people that are doing deals that can help you level up. Matt knows so many people. I know a lot of people. I'm not a knowledge source. I wouldn't say an encyclopedia like some of these people, but boy, I'm a great connector. So I think it's going to be really cool. And that's kind of, we just wanted to come on and touch on that today is what's your story today? That's awesome. But like, how do you want your story to end? And what action are you going to be taking to produce those results?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's so important. And I
like
like
you
the
said,
idea.
sometimes saying no is what you have to do.
I mean, that's part of you know, the recalibration, as we call it, or, you know, don't let the deferred maintenance go on. You know, your body's that hard drive. There's got to be replenishment. And that's what ultimately is going to, this community is going to create. And the Reap the Harvest community is meant, number one, and most importantly, to get the most out of people, and to be what I call just the extreme level of gratefulness, like to have an extreme level of gratefulness and presence in your house, in your home life, whatever your like vision is for your life, but to have an extreme level of presence paralleled with just an extreme level of gratefulness that allows you to move forward. Because I mean, you can't always be thinking ahead, right? I have future ambitions that are pretty high, but at the end of the day, like I have to be happy right here where I'm at. And if you aren't happy right here where you're at, then like how do you make make small steps forward in changing your story, right? And that's just where I've come. You know, and even this helps me out, right? The level of accountability as far as providing you know, this podcast and these live streams is really, you know, I hope anyone listening in, you know, really can view this as like, yeah, like I get it, man. That mentality, I see Matt and Pat's kind of mentality day after day, that level of accountability. That's what you can have in this community, right? And then this community is meant not only to really create that vision chart, because that's what we're going to do. There's going to be a little bit of homework involved. So you are paying for homework. But at the end of the day, you really need to build that out. And then how do you get that like mindset shift to create that level of change? Because one book is not going to do anything for you, right? I'm in the process. We're going to be building out modules, and then I'm going to be writing a book. But, you know, one book is not really going to change you, because when you read that book, typically you're done with that book, and you know, majority of the people, there's no change, right? But unless you create yourself in a community around you that's going to hold you accountable and that is going to move the needle forward, that's, you know, there's really not many places you can do. Rising tides lifts all boats. I say that over and over again.
Well, and the network thing too. Who's in your network? If the people in your network are consistently putting up numbers and putting up results in areas that you want to be putting up results in, you're automatically going to take more action. You're automatically going to be more accountable because you want to be at a certain level, and there's no comparison. Everybody's in a different stage in their journey, but I think it's awesome to be on a team of people that are going somewhere, that have designated goals and that are aimed at something. How are you ever going to hit a goal if you've never set a target? Grant Cardone talks about this a lot. I've studied Cardone a lot. He's real hyperactive like I am. And I think that's why I kind of started navigating to his message a lot when I first started looking up entrepreneurs. And we ended up becoming friends. I ended up playing at his events and stuff. And he's always says, man, what's your target? Who's your target? Where am I going? And you see a lot of times he's like, anytime you're depressed or you're feeling anxious, he's like, I get like that too. I'm not taking enough action, man. My target isn't high enough. I'm not looking at my stats. I'm not diving in enough. I need to be taking more action. You know, the mindset stuff's great, but what drives you to another section of higher capacity mindset is the action involved. Yeah, I mean, I could sit around and read mindset books all day and be like, dude, I'm getting my mind right. How long are you going to get your mind right before you do something?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, reoccurring action is that's ultimately what it comes down to. But it's also, you know, the replenishment, what we're talking about, right?
Well, that's true too.
You have the replenishing factor of like, hey man, how do I hit reboot or reset? And it's not about like Aubrey Huff. And I've said this on previous podcasts. They gave the greatest of analogies in baseball, right? Is that in baseball, the best players only hit between 300, right? They only bat 300. They hit 30% of the time they're going to be hitting. And they're going to go into slumps, right? Mike Trout's going to go in a slump.
Even if they're on steroids.
You know what? You know what makes the best hitters the best, or the best players the best, right? Is limiting that slump, right? There inevitably a slump's going to occur in life, in baseball, in basketball, whatever. Kevin Durant, he's going to shoot a night that is, he's going to go 2 for 18, right? Or LeBron James. But you know what? And that might go on for 2 games. But that third game, he's bouncing back.
He's dunking on your face. Yeah.
It's limiting that slump, right? Where's the reboot? Where's the reset? And it might be in a growth and mindset book. It might be in a community where you're coming to somebody and you're like, hey, man, I'm struggling in this area. I know that you have some expertise. How do I get over this hurdle? And that's what community brings, right? As you build a community, that's your network, right? Where you guys are going to lock arms and you're like, hey, man, I have resources. And that's ultimately why we're creating this Reap the Harvest community, is because it's not necessarily, it's number 1 to set the target, 2 to create action, but 3 is to create and lock arms with a community that can level you up, right? And shorten those slumps, shorten those gaps where it says, hey, no, it's not acceptable to gain 25 pounds this month, or during COVID, I'm eating cupcakes like crazy. Like, get up at 4:45, or 5 o'clock if that's too early, or whatever it might be. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it. I don't do it every day, but I'll tell you what, when I don't do it for 2 days in a row,
you feel
how can I limit that slump? I'm in a slump right now. I'm not feeling well. I got to get up at 4:45. I got to make my run in. So this morning, I'll tell you, case in point, this morning, I was tired. It was a shitty morning. It was my little girl woke up like at 3 a.m. crying. My 2-year-old.
Oh, you had one of these situations too?
Yeah, it was 3 a.m. Crying, right? And I go. So my alarm clock's in my room, obviously, and I go in her room and I just lay in bed with her to get her back to sleep. Mm-hmm. So I'm rolling around. I'm trying to get her back to sleep. And then I'm like, I need to get back in my bed because I got to wake up soon, right? I wake up thinking it was 3 a.m. I got a couple hours of sleep. No, it's 4:44 already. I'm like, this sucks. I don't have any time to sleep, right? So I'm like, oh man, I was like, I got to get up. So I'm like working myself to get up because I'm already pissed tired. Then the baby wakes up at 5 a.m., right? I'm trying to get myself out of bed for 15 minutes. And now the baby starts crying. She's yelling. I'm already up. I'm not going to make my wife get up. I'm like, all right, I got to get and I had already scheduled a workout, scheduled a run. So then I was like, dang it, man, I'm not going to be able to do this. So like I said that, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to get back in bed. I'm going to get the baby down. So anyways, I gave her a bottle, put her back down, and now it goes through my head. Like, dang, man, I'm not gonna be able to run this morning.
Yeah, might as well just skip it, right?
Then I'm like, wait a minute, this is the whole reason why we got the Bob stroller. I'll throw this baby in the Bob stroller and start running. So anyways, you have to improvise, right? So I threw the baby in the stroller. We went for a 2-mile run and had a good morning out of it. Sometimes you got to improvise, right? It's not going to be your day. It wasn't my morning, but and I'm not saying the best at it because I hit slumps. But I was like, you know what? Today doesn't need to be a slump day. I can knock myself out. I can make it a 25-minute slump because that's what I went through. By 5:30, I was out the door and I was in a 2-mile bike ride or a 2-mile run. Then came back and things turned out well. So it's limiting those slumps. What do those slumps look like? You determine it for yourself, but that's what the community brings. And so this is going to be the last Wednesday. We're not going to hit up any more Wednesdays. We're creating a community here on out. It's going to be a Reap the Harvest community. Pat and I are going to be heavily involved in that. I'm actually going through modules, so there's actually more stuff that's actually going to come along with it. But the first things first, you're going to have homework. There's going to be a dream line built out, and we're going to get there together, and we're all going to rise up and level up together and be extreme.
And so that's what we're going to be doing on Wednesdays instead of the stream. Around this time, is we're going to have a accountability call every week inside the group. So if you guys are interested, shoot Matt a DM, shoot me a DM. We'll get you set up in the system. We're really excited about it. And it's something we've wanted to do for a while, but we also wanted to get out here and talk about what we want to talk about and grow together. And I mean, we've become such good friends, and I'm so grateful for Matt and for his wife for supporting me, because I've come a long way since meeting them. And so I know that can help other people too. So I'm excited to be the producer man behind the computer for it. And we look forward to seeing people on the other side, dude. So, yep. Appreciate you, brother. And
Appreciate
until
you, brother.
next time.